Welcome, everybody. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces. I am so excited that you are all here. Gosh, this is just a thrill. I am so excited to have everybody here. I'm Christine Souza, and uh, I've created this space that was kind of out of selfish reasons. This has been a meeting that I started over 2 years ago, and so excited that you are all here. We have had speakers. It's been an organic conversation and it's been growing. And I just want to thank each of you for your support. I am just so thrilled and excited to introduce you to tonight's speaker. And I'm going to do a little bit of a bio and then let Lisa share a little bit about herself. But I'm so grateful, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to just introduce Lisa Pahl. She's the CEO of the Death Deck. It's a company that creates tools to inspire meaningful conversations on what matters most in our lives and in our deaths. As a licensed clinical social worker, accredited in hospice and palliative care with over 18 years of experience in hospice and 7 years in emergency medicine, Lisa helps people cope with illness, dying, and grief. Lisa is also an expert contributor for Help Text, which provides expert grief and mental health support via text messages, which I think is so amazing. And she's also a volunteer with the Humane Prison Hospice Project, which provides palliative care training and support for incarcerated individuals. With a passionate belief that peace at the end begins with meaningful conversations over time. Lisa engages people in talking about and preparing for this important stage of life. It is my honor to introduce Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us, Lisa.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Christine. And look at all these beautiful faces. I thank you. I understand that not everyone can have their cameras on, but it means so much when I do get to see people's faces. It really helps to connect with people and feel like we're in conversation instead of kind of speaking into the abyss. So thank you everybody for being here. And I love seeing so many familiar faces and some new faces too.
Thank you so much. So, Lisa, I think maybe if you don't mind, this is a little just for people that have joined the Good Death Seminar series. This is going to be a speaker, Good Death, or sorry, Death Over Tea. And so I really just want people to just sit back and grab a cup of tea and really just be able to um, just kind of sit back and soak in all of the great things that Lisa has to say. But I also we'll open at the end for questions and answers too, but really just kind of wanted to ask Lisa some questions that you guys have probably been curious about. But um, I think maybe, Lisa, if you don't mind, maybe can you talk a little bit about your journey and what was the inspiration? I know that you've created several decks, but in particular, I'm understanding that the Death Deck was your first deck. And so, can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind that?
Sure. I mean, this is, my favorite topic, so I'm happy to talk about it. Yeah, so I've worked in hospice for many years. I also worked in emergency medicine and the ICU. And so in both of those venues, people aren't talking about death and dying. And all of us who have worked in healthcare or continue to work in healthcare, we know that families come in with having a family member that has had a stroke or a heart attack, and there's no advance directive. The children have different ideas about the type of care that the person would want, and arguments and chaos kind of unfolds. And so the death deck, the inspiration from that came um, with a hospice. So my friend Lori, her husband was on hospice service, and I was his social worker. And he was in his 40s, and they were not prepared for him to die. And so years later, we came together based on my professional experience, her personal experience, and said, what can we do to help make this conversation easier? And how can we make it more fun? So we decided to use multiple choice and questions and some humor to liven up the topic and make it more approachable. And what we found was that not only was it successful, we had all these different entry points of types of questions that could get people talking about death and dying, but that also people felt really connected to each other. And we were actually helping to kind of nurture relationships between family members, between friends, between community members through the game as well. And I like to think of that piece of all of the products now is that, when we have these meaningful conversations, we really get to the core of what's most important to us. We share stories about people who have died. We share stories of challenging times and our hopes for the future. And to me, that's what makes life juicy and meaningful and worth living is these rich conversations we get to have with each other. So that was the impetus for the first deck. And then in 2023, we created the end of life deck or the EWEL deck with our little koala on it. And and really this came from a desire for myself as a hospice social worker to have a tool that I could use specifically with hospice palliative care and people who are approaching end of life, be able to talk more fully about their end of life preferences. So, the death deck is pretty playful. We ask a lot of different questions to try to warm people up to the topic. And then the end of life deck is really where we talk specifically about topics like what do you want to hear as you're approaching the end? How do you feel about touch? How do you feel about visitors? So, this is, I would say, what our doulas and hospice team members are using um, as people are approaching end of life. The death deck being more of the community education, community engagement, family conversations, that sort of thing.
Thank you. And you have an exciting new deck that just came out too.
I do. I'm really excited about our dementia deck. Um, I think he might be our cutest little mascot yet. Um, uh, yeah, so the dementia deck we just launched last month. And that was a collaboration with Compassion and Choices. So they were instrumental in helping to develop it with me. Um, Basically, I used inspiration from the Dementia Values and Priorities tool that they have, which is an incredible a dementia directive that you can attach to your advanced directive. Um, maybe maybe Karen could put that in the chat. It's a wonderful resource. And so I took inspiration from that dementia values and priorities tool as I was creating the dementia deck. And so the purpose or kind of our idea is people can have some conversations and then they can fill out the paperwork that will help guide their family members. But all of our tools, and I should say, when I say our tools, I mean me. I am the death deck. And so, but you're supposed to say we to sound bigger. So I'm saying we. Um, but yeah, all of the tools are meant to facilitate conversations because even though I am a huge advocate for advanced directives, we all know if you've worked in end of life care that it's really the nurses, the doctors, they're asking people, they're not necessarily looking for that piece of paper. Um, Especially in critical moments. So we really want to make sure that we're having the conversations about what our end of life wishes are, because it's those conversations that then give us confidence that we know what our person would want. Um, Sometimes that check mark on the advanced directive just it doesn't really give us the confidence that we understood what they meant by that or what they have written in. So we want to make sure we're fully having these conversations, and yeah, that's the impetus for all of these tools.
And so, I have friends, nurse friends that work in the ICU, and, a lot of them, a majority of them say they're having conversations with family members at the bedside. What do you think your mom or dad would want? And they find that to be so painful. And it's just so common that those conversations are happening at the bedside. It's so heartbreaking. And so I love the idea of the death deck of like having this conversation way before, something catastrophic happens. And so it's such a helpful tool, I think, for everybody. And I'm kind of curious, Lisa, so not everybody is called into the space of working in hospice. So what was your, I know that you mentioned you worked in the ER, but was that something that you always wanted to do, was to work with people at the end of life?
No, it never crossed my mind in any way. I actually, it's funny how the older I get, the more I reflect more on my earlier years. Um, when I was 19 and my dad was in his early 40s, he got very sick and we didn't know what was wrong with him. And he actually started having these depressive episodes and almost a little psychosis. And it just freaked the hell out of me. And my dad was a truck driver and a farmer and he didn't talk about any feelings, and all of a sudden he's just weeping and won't get out of bed. And it was like, what is going on with this man? And well, it took a very long time because we live in rural Michigan. And finally, they diagnosed him with hairy cell leukemia, and he was really, really sick at the time because it had gone untreated because no one thought to check his blood work. They treated him for mental health issues. So anyway, I avoided the hospital. I avoided the situation. I carried a lot of guilt for a lot of years about that. My dad and I just did a video series together where, he he remembered that time very differently, which I think is just a beautiful um, reminder to myself that the things we carry, the other person probably isn't actually carrying, you know? um, but when I stumbled into hospice, I got burnt out on community mental health. I was working in East LA and two of my clients were murdered, and I decided that I was done working in community mental health in that moment. And so I thought, well, how can I do in-home visits, because this is the social work that I want to be doing. And so I stumbled into hospice, and then within that first week, I just, I knew in that moment, I was like, okay, this is where I've always meant to be. And I think it started with trying to right the wrong of running away from my dad's illness. Um, and and then I also grew up on a farm, and so death was really a part of our life all growing up. And so I did have some inherent comfort with death and dying that surprised me. Um, But I will just add with my dad, since I've been on the topic of him, he used that diagnosis to completely change his life, and he went from being a man with a horrible temper and a family that was all about work to being a really loving, incredible person, like the best I know. And so that also stuck with me all these years, that when we face our mortality, when we actually think about the fact that we're going to die and we have an opportunity to take stock of the life we're living, that we can make significant changes. And I hold on to that. That is really a guiding principle in my life, is like, you know, not just the mortality awareness, but that people really can change. And that continues to give me hope, especially in complicated family situations that I'm dealing with at the bedside. And you know, most people are going to die how they live, but sometimes, sometimes these beautiful moments happen, and sometimes reconciliation happens, and sometimes forgiveness happens. And so I always hold out a little hope for that. And I think that my dad kind of inspired me with that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think as you're sharing your experience, my father passed. It was 54 days after his diagnosis,
Mm,
and so it was very fast. And we had some loose ends to tie up, but I really felt so. At this time, that was 15 years ago, and I think about, of course, what I if I wish I would have known then what I know now, but I truly believe just being involved in so many um, lives of so many people at the end of life, I do believe that healing is possible, even up until we take our last breath. And then afterwards, too. Like, I hold hope for so many people that, that forgiveness work can continue even um, after we leave this earthly plane. But gosh, what a beautiful gift for you and your father to be able to um, like it does when we're told we don't have enough time, life takes on a whole new meaning. I learned that from Gabby, and I just think that it's so powerful when we bear witness to people's journey, how and when we begin to really explore our own mortality, it can cause us to lean in a little bit more deeper. So yeah, it's beautiful. How do you, Lisa, to be honest with you, since we're on that topic of being able to, sustain this type of work, how do you manage your own emotional well-being in this line of work? How do you manage self-care and really being able to kind of walk beside people on the journey, but how do you self-regulate and manage your own self-care doing this work?
I call Gabby. No, well, really, but also developing a group. I am so fortunate with the Death Deck, the amazing humans that I've met. And I'm sure every person on this call I could add to that, category. And so I've developed, I have different people who I feel like support me in different ways about different like struggles with patients or families, or this is my maid person, this is um my social work people, and these are my resource people. So I have a wide net of people that I share with. I also go to therapy every week, and that is a really big piece of my maintaining my own mental health. um, I I and then I do a lot of those things that we're supposed to do, right? I walk. I'm now on a streak of 102 days of walking every day. Um, Now, Gabby and I were in New Orleans, and I'm counting those days because we did walk a lot and we danced, Gabby. So I'm counting those days. But journaling as well. I got a journal from 25 years ago. Wow. If you ever wanna if you ever want to get in your feelings, go back to a journal that you wrote in your 20s. Um, yeah, and I do a lot of writing. But I should say also that I did hit a wall, and I did just quit my job, and I did partly make that decision because I felt that I couldn't do this work right now. So, um, yeah, I think the self-care, all the things in place can keep you going for so long. But my friend, my friend who was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in January, and I did my best to support him and his wife through his cancer journey, and it kind of broke me. It just being at the bedside while watching him go from this vibrant man who was I loved so much to this 80-pound person. And and trying to guide his wife and her making different decisions than I wanted for my friend. I think that's the thing, I think that's the thing that is so hard, when you work in this space and when I've seen so many people die and I have my own ideas about what I think that death should look like. And I'm constantly reminded that it's not about me and it's not my death. And yet I still have my thoughts and beliefs and opinions about it. And this one really, it just kind of knocked me out because I just didn't want him to continue going through this, and she did, and then I began supporting the friends who were watching this, who were so mad at the wife, and so I realized in that situation. So what happened for me is I was trying to continue working while doing this, and I found myself having tears really close to the surface. I found myself over identifying with family members. I I I had a patient that I had been seeing a long time, and the patient is a young woman in her 40s, and her mom was her caregiver. And I hugged her at the end of the visit, and I didn't let go. And I have really good boundaries. I have worked really hard to have good boundaries. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, that hug was for me. That wasn't for her. And that really, that kind of stopped me. And I said, I think I need to walk away. Now, granted, my managers are amazing and I work for a great hospice and they begged me to stay. And so I took off a little time to see if I how I felt, and I pretty much knew pretty quickly that I needed a break. So I am now doing the death deck full time and educating and seeing what's next in my life. But I wanted to really talk about that. I keep trying to find the words. I want to write something, or you always think, well, anyway. Um, but compassion fatigue does happen and it's okay. I mean, I've been down this road. I quit hospice once before and I took a few years off and worked only in the ER. I came back to hospice 3 years later. I don't know if I'll do that again or if I'll do my own thing as a doula like person or something like that. But I want to give people permission that, you know, it you can't always be doing this work. Sometimes when you have your own losses or you have personal struggles going on, sometimes we can't actually be there to show up for other people. And our shit does get in the way. And we have to like be aware enough and professional enough to recognize that because otherwise things can get really murky and that's where sometimes unethical things or crossing of boundaries that can get you in trouble in some capacity can happen. And so that's my little, it's okay if ever you need a break, and it doesn't mean that you won't return to this calling or this passion. I might be just telling myself that right now, and you all are just hearing it.
Oh, I love it. We were talking before you all came on. I was talking to Lisa, and it's like I just let go of my nursing job yet again. I've retired from nursing 3 times, and we were talking about moral distress in healthcare, right? And so that is a real concern, I think. And in order for us to be able, like, I'm so passionate about caregivers. I'm so passionate about, the folks that are on the front line, helping to support those at the end of life. But compassion fatigue and moral distress in healthcare is a real thing. And I think we each we have to self monitor and we have to be able to self regulate, when it's time to tap out or, pivot a little bit. And so, and I think that it's not unusual for people to move to different areas of their scope of practice, and so I do think that it's important to recognize that self care is one of them, one of the things that are so important, but also being able to recognize that we are all going to have our end of life experience, and I feel like like living life fully. And so when things begin to get really heavy and hard, that it's okay to reevaluate and say, well, maybe I'll go hold babies for a little bit, or maybe I'll go work in the nursery or something like that. I mean, there is this heaviness, this density that is in this line of work, but I also feel like it's super life affirming. People ask me, how do you do this work? And it must be so sad. And I'm like, how can you not? I do think that I think for me, I really wanted end of life experiences to just be wrapped up in this beautiful little package. Here you go. Here's your end of life experience, and everybody's all happy. And and I've had two personal deaths this week. My brother-in-law just passed today, and then I had a friend die from glioblastoma earlier this week. And Gabby, I just want to say a shout out for you. Your grief bowl is so powerful. Like I think we learn from one another about these rituals and these practices that really help to sustain us moving forward so that we can continue doing the work. My grief bowl is getting really full. And and that's a lot of grief to hold on to. And I think that it's not uncommon for us to be able to just recognize we need to step back and go out in nature, go be silly and play in the leaves and remember that we're alive and that we don't have to kind of get washed away from all the suffering that we're seeing in the world. So I really am excited for you, Lisa. I think, living that life of no regrets, like you go for it, like just go for it, and the death deck will just take you. And you have a strong message. You have a very strong message. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the other thing that popped up when you were talking about that, Christine, well, first of all, I'm really sorry that you've experienced those losses this week. And here you are here tonight, still holding space for everyone here and with us. And it would have been okay if you canceled. Just know that, right? But I think the other thing that comes up for me is once you work in this space for so long, people do call on you. Um, right? And so, oh, can you talk to my cousin's brother who just who wants, like, I think he needs to go on hospice, or my mom just went in the hospital, and so you get these frantic calls, right? And that is this new stage that I'm trying to work out. How do you manage the desire to support and help, and yet not totally get dragged in, kind of, right, to each of these crisis situations. And quite honestly, that's something that I'm continuing to learn, because I am a I this is my life passion, and so I really want people to have the education and support they need for their family members. And yet, you know um it does also become challenging, because I am a human being that then starts to feel really sad and invested in the story of what's happening. And did they move your dad? Did he get discharged? What's the next step? And I think that as caregivers, as people who want to help, this is my next phase of really working on those boundaries, and deciding for myself, as I think we all have to, what is our line, and when do we say, I need to refer you to a doula that can support you professionally, or we need to talk about an arrangement that I can continue supporting you, or something like that, because each of these experiences become like I feel them, and I think I never want to stop feeling, in these situations. But I also know that um that they all can come with some cost, right? It can mean that then I'm not having dinner with my family because I'm taking the call from a friend who needs someone to guide through this time. And so yeah, I feel like this is my I'm almost 50. So this is my like you're 50, like this is your lesson of this age is how do I figure out those boundaries of being a supportive friend and resource in the community as well as knowing my limits of what I can do.
I'm a big fan of Jennifer O'Brien, and she calls BF, not BFFs, but DFFs, so Death Friends
Yes.
Forever, so that's when we lean on our death friends, because I think, my husband has his own health journey that he is on, and sometimes, he's not, I mean, he's a safe space to be able to, share general information. It was a really hard day, but, sometimes he's his container, not too deep. And so, I mean, he's a deep person, but it's too much for him. And so, really, I can rely on my doula friends and people that that can hold that. But I also think about there's this whole witness consciousness, of being the observer, and I feel like that really has been such a strong practice for me personally of like it's been a process of seeing so much that not that I'm in a state of neutrality, but I'm not, I'm less, I have a less tendency to kind of be washed away and carried out to sea each time. And so, but it is like as soon as somebody starts crying, I'll start crying. So, I have to really self monitor myself as well. So it is a balance though, but I do think that if you aren't moved by just life itself and this beautiful existence that we're all experiencing, I think that maybe it's time to take a break. So, yeah, I love all of that. So, can I ask, Lisa, so do you is there like a story or lesson that you think everybody I think like if you could share a story or a lesson from all the years of experience that you've had, is there probably many things that you can share, but can you maybe summarize well, I think maybe one, too. I really like to hear about the Humane Prison Hospice Project before I forget, but also kind of dovetail, like, if you could just share one piece of advice or two or three, whatever feels right for you, of how people can navigate and support people. Because I think we have caregivers on the call, we have doulas, we have nurses, we have a big variety of people that are here.
Yeah. Well, um, I think there is always room for humor in life. That is one of my biggest messages. It does take some clinical judgment. It does take kind of knowing the situation you're walking into and getting a vibe check on people. But I I use humor every day in my work. I use humor with my hospice patients and families. And man, people are looking to laugh. They are looking to for a release. They will laugh at the corniest jokes if you put yourself out there and be a little goofy. Again, I always meet the family first. I get a vibe. My strategy is to first look for any of them displaying humor, and then I lean into it, like really laugh along, letting them know, um, and then I might gently, kind of joke around a little bit once they've opened the door, or I might start with a joke like, did you see the movie about constipation? It hasn't come out yet, and everybody groans and we just kind of have a little giggle and move along. Um, but I think we don't talk about humor in healthcare and humor in end of life care that often, and I think it should be celebrated more. Um, there's so much richness and connection when we can laugh together. It also reduces people's fears when they're laughing. There's a normalcy that's established about laughing over something. There's also laughing at the audacity of the situation. I can't tell you how many people I've laughed. I've laughed with the daughter as she's trying to change her dad's briefs, right? And she's just like, Dad, I can't believe we're here, and like those moments, like we can either make them as tense as possible or we can try to like lighten it up. And I think that there's so much to gain from that. You know, one of my favorite hospice memories is this gentleman that was dying, and he was, I mean, that's not the funny part, but he was close to the end of his life, and I came to see him, and he was super excited, and he said, Lisa, guess what? Um, and I said, what, Bob? And he said, Mary came to see me last night. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Your wife came to see you last night. And so I'm thinking about this, and I said, wait a minute. I thought your wife's name was Ruth. And he said, it is, but Mary came to see me. And he was so excited because the one that got away was coming to get him. And so oh my gosh, I could not stop laughing. The tears were just rolling down my cheeks because I mean this man was just so delighted. And so then we got in this really beautiful but funny and impossible discussion about whether he was going to have to stay with his wife in the afterlife or whether he could get with Mary because and I said, well, it says till death do you part in your marriage vows, right? So I think you can like try things out with with Mary. And and I think now if I had been a minister, like that I'm a social worker. I took things at face value and we had a good time with it. But I think those moments are, I mean, those are the moments that really stick with me. And I think that when we can show up authentically and like as our true self, as our personality, and we can bring that lightness when it's appropriate or go along with the lightness that's in the room, I think we can really get to a deeper level with the people that we're supporting. I don't even remember what you asked me, but
Oh,
that's where I ended.
I love it. I do think that it is important to, you know, I I'm a firm believer that you can have joy and sorrow at the same time. I think in the midst of the tornado of hard and sad, like there are pockets of joy, that people really hang on to. And I think about a gentleman that I took care of as a hospice nurse. His wife was the only caregiver, which I just am so sad that that happened, but that was happening for them. And he was a salesman, that on the road salesman. And she, as the funeral home was taking him out of the house, she one of his requests was to play On the Road Again. And so we just primed that up on the phone, and the funeral home was wheeling him out, and it was joyful. I mean, it was just this, it was yeah, it was beautiful. And I do think that, when we think about death, we're supposed to behave, somber. And sometimes it's okay to, be joyful, um and be able to have a little comic relief, because we're all going to make funny noises, and we're all going to be, put in some situations where my mom was the best. I think she taught me so much about laughing, taking her to the bathroom, and patting her bottom, and just things like that. I'll never forget that. And the most intimate memory I have of my mom is helping her in the shower, like literally in the shower with her, getting soaking wet, and then blow drying her hair in the bathroom. Like, I still have her hair dryer. I just, like, things like that just really stay with us. And so, in the middle of hard, we can find those moments of joy and peace. And, it's just such a human experience. So that's beautiful. Lisa, I want to open it up for questions and answers, but I do really I was hoping maybe you could share a little bit about, I'm really intrigued by the Human Prison Hospice Project. Can you talk a little bit about that work?
Sure, sure. Gabby's a facilitator as well, so she can chime in too. Yeah, so I know Gabby's been volunteering longer than I have, but I've been volunteering at the Chinook Women's Correctional Facility. It's about an hour and a half from where I live. We have done two trainings there so far. And what we do is we train the incarcerated women on palliative care and how to take care of their aging counterparts. And then we've been going every month for a monthly support group. And so basically supporting the women in their work and providing a space for further education to talk about the grief that they experience in prison, as well as the barriers to providing the palliative care that they want to be providing. There's a lot of, as you can imagine, institutional challenges that come up. And so we also have the support of Humane trying to kind of help navigate some of those things. But mostly our role with the support group is really to support the women and the work that they're doing and help them feel valued and that they have people in the community that they can turn to with questions and that sort of thing. So it's deeply rewarding work. It's the favorite thing that I'm doing right now. And I learn something new from the women that every time I go. And if you want an activity that really rips open your heart and lets you see the humanness in all of us, I mean, this is it. I hadn't worked in a correctional facility before, and grew up in a small town, and probably had like my ideas about what it was going to be like, and it's nothing like what I imagined, and it's been just deeply rewarding and meaningful. Yeah. And they are expanding and looking to expand to Michigan. I know is one of the areas that Humane is working with. Um, of course, Gabby's up in Northern California, and working with a couple prisons up there. And yeah, what am I missing, Gabby?
I think you said that quite well. Um,
Okay.
one of the first of all, I went in there thinking we're going to bring in all of our knowledge and we're going to teach them how to do this work, right? But the truth is, they're already doing it and they're doing it really beautifully. They just weren't being recognized for it.
Yeah.
And the Humane Prison Hospice Project created a curriculum, an 18 module curriculum that they follow and we lead so that they can actually learn the skills to provide end of life care. And at the end of the completion of this, they do have they follow through that. They receive a certificate that goes in their file, and it represents all this training, hours of training to provide end of life care, and they are already doing it. And honestly, they could teach us a few things. I think the most valuable thing that someone said to me was, Gabby, imagine if everyone you meet judged you for your past, for the things that you did. And it really made me think about this. Like, if I sat down at a bedside and one of my patients looked at me and knew maybe something that I might have said or done in my past that I'm not proud of, we all have something like that, right? Would they still want me at their bedside? Would they still trust me with their care? And I think that's how they feel every day. They are providing beautiful care to people who are dying, some of which they might have not gotten along with, might not have connected on any level. But here they show up, they hold their hand, they change their soiled diapers, they sit with them until they take their last breath. They've even created, in the two prisons that I work in, they've created a band. They've started a band so they could play music at their bedside and when they're taken out after they've died. And what we realize is that yes, they've made huge mistakes and poor choices at a very young age, and they're paying for them every day. But to be able to give back and do work that gives them a sense of pride is huge, and they do it really well. In fact, we could learn from them because they're not doing it for money. They're not doing it for recognition. I mean, the only reason they're really being recognized at this point is because we're elevating that, right? We're coming in and we're telling their story. But they do it beautifully. And they remind us, like one of the guys wrote I remember at a graduation, two of the gentlemen wrote a song based on a previous song they had heard. And the basis of this is that you might be the last hand that someone holds.
Mm.
And they remind me constantly that what we're doing is such sacred work. And
Yeah.
we do it, we get paid for it, we get to go on podcasts and talk about it, but they're doing it in private and they're doing it equally as beautifully. And it's just a really wonderful program. We are elevating the awareness that we are all human.
Yeah.
And I'm not condoning their choices. What I'm saying is that they're honoring that and they're trying to do something to make their family proud. One gentleman told me, I hope that if my son looks at me one day, he only sees what I'm doing well.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I think Lisa said it really well. She works with the women, I work with the men. But other than that, I think our work is very similar.
Hmm. Yeah, instead of the women are crocheting and knitting blankets instead of creating the band. But yes, it's very similar, very similar. Yeah, and yeah, I think Gabby and I could talk. I mean, we could do an entire um, talk just on that experience working with Humane. But if anyone's interested, yeah, you can reach out and we can talk more about it. That is why I've added it to my bio because I want more people to be aware of the great work that Humane is doing. And so when people read that, now people, start to say, what is that? Um, so thank you for asking.
Thank you. I will open up, and if anyone wants to raise their digital hand, you can. Sarah says, yes, sign me up. It's beautiful. I think that, we can support people at the end of life in any space. It doesn't have to look any, there are so many opportunities for volunteer. There's homeless shelters. There is, all sorts of opportunities that we can really be of service. And yeah, so thank you, Gabby and Lisa, for that. So, Carl, let's good to see you, Carl. Welcome.
Hi, this question's for Lisa. What's one death deck question that always sparks the deepest family conversations?
Ooh. Um, there's one question that asks, growing up, my family dealt with death in this way, which is fascinating, I think, for different members of the family to answer that question. Because I think in my case, my parents thought um, that I would answer it differently than I did. And so the answers are basically in a life happens, move on, um, ignore it, or basically we don't really talk about it, or a little bit of humor and acceptance. And so I really like to hear that answer from different people because I think it gives us a lot of understanding of where they're coming from and in their ideas about death. Were you raised in a death avoidant family? Or was death something, did you get to go to the funerals when you were little, or did your family say that that's not for kids? Did you get to see the open casket, or did you imagine what that looked like? So I really like that question. And on the playful side, well, not playful, but there's another question that asks about whether you believe that people can communicate after they're gone. And that question for me elicits the best stories of any card. And most of the time, at least in the sample of people willing to play the game, uh, people have a story about why they think that that is true. Um, some people, of course, will say they don't believe in it, but the majority of people will want to like dig into that question a lot too. So thank you for asking.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Veronica. Veronica, you want to unmute and come in?
Hello, Lisa. Hello,
Hi,
Gabby.
Veronica.
My question is, which one is your favorite card?
Oh,
Your
my favorite
card?
card. Yeah, I think it's the sign question. I think it's the sign question because I really love to hear people's stories, and I also like to get a chance to tell my own story. And so that is my favorite question. I do also like this one is again more of the playful, but I like the question about whether mediums can communicate with the dead. It kind of gets at a similar theme. Um, but what comes up in that tends to be people's dreams, where people have visited them in their dreams or they have actually seen a medium and what has come out of those conversations. So those always interest me in a really rich way to hear people's afterlife or these just ideas about the topic. I think it's like the one mystery we really don't have the answer to. And when I first started working in hospice, I really kind of felt like it was all just woohoo bonky shit. And now after being around death and dying for so many years, I believe that people can communicate after they're gone, and I have experienced things that make me really believe that as well. And um, so I love having conversations about that. I always stack the deck and make sure that that's included when we're gonna play.
Oh, I love that. I too can no longer deny, the mystery of all that is, and it's more of a curiosity and really just allowing people. I think what I love about the death deck is that it really creates an opportunity for conversation to be like, oh, I didn't know that you thought that too, and really creates an opportunity for us, reminding us that we have a lot more similarities than differences. So yeah, beautiful. Hey, Tiffany, good to see you. Let's see, there you go.
Hey there, everybody.
Hi.
So I bought the Deaf Deck a while back. Probably had it maybe about 6 months. They sit here on my desk actually. And I had just started a TikTok page. And one of the things I wanted to do was like maybe ask a question a week and see, I don't have no fanfare, no following or anything like that. I'm just getting started. So I was wondering, do you have a TikTok page so you can be tagged or something? How does that work when we're using other people's
Yes, please tag me. It, I will tell you though, Tiffany, I'm an old lady. I keep trying TikTok. I know there's people older than me using TikTok, but Instagram is keeping me busy. I keep trying to get it back over to TikTok. So tag me. I pop in to TikTok. And one day, probably as soon as they're shutting it down, I'll get on it. But yes, please tag me. I'm totally fine with people using the death deck. I love you using the death deck in all your scenarios. Please just make sure you tag, or if you're in community, just let people know what it is that you're using. But otherwise, that's what these tools are made for, is for you to be able to, in your community, in your family, in your work setting, help facilitate conversations. So yes, you go, Tiffany, get that TikTok.
Yeah, Christine, because I found one card, we're trying to work on advanced directives, getting people to talk about that kind of thing, and and us doing the PMPs. And I'm just going to read this card so everybody will know what I'm talking about. This card, it says, it's titled Self-Help, and it says, regarding your inevitable future demise, in what area are you most prepared? In what area are you least prepared? So I thought this was a great card to make people think about it without, kind of pushing it in their face. And then they'll think about it and may want to come back and have more conversation. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I like that card.
Yeah, I would say about a third of the questions from the death deck are advanced directive questions, advanced care planning questions. There's a ton of disposition um, questions, and so, like I kind of was alluding to, I do stack the deck. I think about, who's the audience, what's the talk, what are we trying to get people. I had this one woman come up and tell me my brother-in-law keeps avoiding this topic, but my sister is getting really upset with him because his health is declining. And so we talked through, okay, start with these 3 questions, and then just see what happens, and don't push it, but just see what comes out of the conversation, because you can even bring up that medium question, and often it will launch into a story that then launches into someone talking about what they would want for themselves, or I wouldn't want it to go like that, right? And so we can be gentle with people and come from these, not directly, what do you want for yourself questions, and have them be a little bit further removed from themselves, and we can still get there. It just might take a minute, but people, yeah, that's what I try to do, is I try to really be intentional with, now with some people you can just ask them I mean, with all you here, we could ask any question and you're like ready to go. But for the people that this isn't their Monday night fun, we we have to be a little more creative. Yeah, I'm just
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And Tiffany, yes, let us know. We'll be your followers on your TikTok and all of your social media. So we want to support one another and in getting the word out. Yeah, I'm your biggest fan, Tiffany. Tiffany is an amazing hospice nurse, and she is working so hard, and just a beautiful soul. So thanks for
Oh,
joining us,
I love
Tiffany.
that.
Yeah,
Thank
she is
you.
in the trenches, just working so hard. Just a beautiful heart. Hey, Sandra, it's nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
Mm. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm sorry that I was late. So it's not a question, but Lisa, I wanted to let you know, about a week and a half ago, I co-facilitated a death over drafts, and one of my friends was there. It was a great night, with her partner, and her partner's sister died by suicide about 2 years ago. And he keeps saying, I'm fine, and doesn't want to talk about it. And one of the cards came up, and it was if you could live one day over again, which one would you choose? And we sort of, all of us kind of added to that question. Anyways, he broke down in tears. And that was the first time that my friend had ever seen that. So thank you for creating something that is such an amazing tool. And my friend messaged me that night and said how important that was, that moment. and just thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. Thank you. Thank you. That means so much. I think, you know, it's like when you write a book or you put anything out into the world and it just then kind of lives on its own. Like this death deck has its own life. It's just out there doing things, in all these places um and I can't control it, right? Like people have their own experiences with it and but it has been the most um, meaningful thing for me in my professional career to be able to hear stories like that and to think, okay, I'm doing, I've at least done something that is helpful to some people, right? And I
So
think
much.
that's
You've
what
done
we all
so
want to
much.
do is, try to be helpful to some people in the world. And thank you, Sandra. Sandra's been using the Death Deck and creating reels, and she's doing all sorts of content with it, and I love it and support it, and am happy to see the conversations that you're inspiring. So thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know our East Coast DFFs it's kind of late there. I don't want to keep you all, but I do want to talk to Wendy. Wendy's over on the East Coast. Thank you, Wendy.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Great to be with you all tonight. I wanted to ask Lisa first off, I wanted to just say that I have used the Death Deck at some community events, and it's definitely sparks a lot of communication and conversation. And so thank you for that. And I wondered if you could share maybe a few cards from the dementia deck, just a few of the cards, just some of the questions from that. Since I have not. I will be purchasing it, but I don't have it yet, and so I
I
haven't.
should be more prepared. It turns out this is an empty box right here.
Oh.
So, Karen has hers ready to go. I have my electronic version. Karen, you want to pull out a couple?
Absolutely. I'm just going to let you pick a card, Wendy. And the one you picked is my healthcare surrogate representative. A is a family member that I trust. B is a friend or someone I've hired to be in that role. Or C has not been chosen. Maybe I should do that now.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And then as one of the open-ended questions, things I love to do. If I'm living with dementia, please help me find ways to enjoy what I love. Two hobbies or activities that I want to always continue are blank and blank.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yes, most of the questions are the open-ended. We tried to include not just the type of care and treatment that you want, but the quality of life questions. So those tend to be in the open-ended, and I would say that those are the easier ones to start with. And then move towards if I'm living with dementia at this point, this is what I want for my care type questions. I've also gotten the question, can people who are living with dementia utilize the deck? The answer is yes, with an asterisk, which is, everyday people might not want to interact with that deck, right? We know that these cards aren't for everyone. And so it really just depends on the person. I have personally played with two different individuals who have a diagnosis of early dementia. They're in the early stages of dementia, and both of these two women really want to be involved in the decision making, and they wanted to participate, and they were able to participate. But they came into it with that understanding. Obviously, if people aren't aware of their memory issues or are defensive, we need to use more caution or kind of ease into the conversation and kind of basically reassess whether that's a conversation that they're able or willing to have. But the goal is for any of us, if we were to be living with dementia, to have more say in what our care looks like, especially to then help alleviate the indecisiveness and chaos of the family who's having to make those decisions, right? So the more we can talk about it now, the more that hopefully we can have more say in our care. And I'm just going to do one other plug for the dementia directive because um, I make my parents play all my games, of course, and they're like my guinea pigs. and and so after we went through the dementia deck, we then each completed the dementia directive, and our answers were so aligned with each other that my parents, who have a pretty strong fear of dementia diagnosis, um, they felt much more at ease because I was viewing things so similar to how they're viewing things in terms of at what point they would want comfort measures, at what type of interventions they would or wouldn't want. And so it really, my mom, she came to a conference with me. It was so sweet. But anyway, she just shared with me at the end of the conference, she said, I just have been feeling so much better ever since we did that dementia directive, because that's always my biggest fear. And so we don't know what the future holds. I don't know, but in this moment in time, she's feeling like she has more control over that time if she were to be living with dementia. And I think that's all we're trying to do, right? We want to be cared for in the way we want to be cared for. We want our family members to be receiving the care that they want. And we just don't always know what that is unless we talk about it. I know we're past time, aren't we? Or
Yes.
7:15?
Yeah, we'll go until me if you're okay with that, Lisa. Maybe we'll
Uh-huh.
go until 8 or my time, 8:15. I'm a big fan of the EOL deck. I use that a lot, and it just seems like people get admitted to hospice so late, right? And so we have to get to the nuts and bolts of really what's important. And so, using the dementia deck out in the community, but I use the EOL deck with my clients, my doula clients, and it really helps to just kind of weed out, all of the things that for me living, like I'll just share with this is probably too TMI, I'm so concerned about chin hairs. Like, it's like who's gonna take care of that? I don't want to have these little chin hairs, it's like but someone reminded me, if I'm unconscious and I'm in my sleeping coma, I'm not gonna care about that, but for me personally right now, my personal care, who's gonna be taking care of me when I'm no longer able to care for myself. And so having the EOL deck was really comforting to me. I'm a little bit of a control freak and I do want things in order, but we're so vulnerable at that point that it helps to open up conversations about what's important to me and making my loved ones aware that knowing that those things will be taken care of in private, not in the middle of the living room, and things like that. So I do think that for me anyway, it has been a beautiful asset and tool that I can use with family members. I love the EOL deck. I love them all, but the EOL deck is really near and dear to my heart. So thank you so much for that. So let's see, Whitney. I see your beautiful hand raised twice.
Hello,
Hi,
this is my first time here, and
welcome.
I'm very curious about this whole process. Um, and I just have a couple different questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Go right
Um,
ahead.
do you need a degree to become a doula?
You
No.
do not. Go ahead,
Okay.
Lisa.
No, there's different trainings that you can go through to become a doula, but you don't need a degree.
Okay. And then my next question is, after somebody has passed, um, have you had the opportunity to help them cross over if they didn't go to the other side? Or do you have somebody that is able to come in to help them cross over if they didn't go? Does that make sense?
Tell me what your definition and what you mean by that, by crossing over.
So, um, so some spirits they get stuck here on Earth, and sometimes they need help to cross over to the spirit world.
And so you're asking if that's the role of a doula or someone working in end of life, or if we've seen that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Christine, I'll let you answer that. Personally, I have not. Now, I mean, well, that's a simplistic answer. I'm just gonna say no, I have not, and I'll toss it to you, Christine, and see what you think.
Thanks, Lisa. So Whitney, yes, Lisa is right. So in to be an end of life doula, we are non-medical holistic practitioners. And so you do not need any medical training to be an end of life doula. I think that's one of the beautiful things about end of life doulas is that we're non-medical practitioners. And as far as helping support people at the end of life, I think there's just you know, um, death will touch all of us, and really being able to support people in whatever ways that we can. If I know people that use all sorts of complementary therapies to help support people at the end of life, oils, drumming and massage and Reiki. I'm a big fan of Reiki, and some people have shamanic healers that come, and I do think that we as doulas, I think that we begin to identify supporting people and just meeting people where they're at. And so if we need to, find resources to be able to support people on their journey, I think that versus someone that's in the medical field may have a little bit of some maybe not the knowledge, perhaps maybe they do, but really being able to support people in a more holistic way. And so really seeking some outside help, such as complementary therapies, and being able to support people. We as doulas, have resources that are available. So supporting people, I think my belief system is that there's four bodies of energy: our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical body. And so there's a lot more going on at the end of life than I think my finite mind can really wrap my mind around that. So being able to support people, depending on their needs, is certainly an option. Yeah. I think going back to Lisa's question about the cards that are pulled, that there is sometimes, the unseen world and the mystery of death, and being able to support people with their belief systems, and just meeting people where they're at, I think is just a beautiful type of support system that we can offer. Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
needs are different, and they're all coming from different religious and cultural backgrounds. And
Mhm.
so, being able to support people is something that can be provided. And I think that if you have a chaplain, that can provide some spiritual support as well for people, it can be beautiful. But sometimes we call in reinforcements at the end.
Mhm.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming, Whitney.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Marcia, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Sorry about, I had it down as 7 o'clock.
Oh, it's all good.
It's first time here. So my apology for not
you.
being here with everyone earlier. I will do better next time. So first of all, this is just more of a comment when you were talking, Christine, about the hair on the chin. When my mom was in residential hospice, because sometimes we try to control everything and we think we're writing it down and we're putting it in 5 wishes. And reality is it may not be read, it may not be attended to, but in terms of that kind of the goodness in people's heart and also the causes we make. So my mom was very close to transitioning. And this was years ago, like 12 years ago or something. And I did not say to someone, oh, there's a hair on her chinny chin chin. And there was this lovely hospice nurse, and they were taking a great care, and I'm doing a lot of Reiki, whatever. And she came in and she took care of that hair intuitively. And my mom was that kind of gorgeous woman that would have meant a lot to her. So that was just a story that you were saying. The other thing that Whitney was mentioning about if someone seems unsettled, or she called it stuck or transitioning. I mean, I've had experiences that when sometimes someone has passed and there's just issues that aren't settled and they don't feel it just doesn't feel quite, settled and balanced. And, whether it's because I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, been a Buddhist for 50 plus years, helps. That's my experience, but also sending Reiki, even to the person after they pass. I like to send after they pass because that way I could sense out how they're doing. It might be information for the family. It just might be supporting them. And it just is a gift. It's just such a sense of grace. And that's something I could do even after the person has physically passed.
Thanks, Marcia. As we're wrapping up here, I have to tell my hair on the chin story now that we've had so many. When my friend Debbie was dying, she was a hospice social worker with me, and I became her healthcare decision maker. And we were sitting in, I was sitting in her room, and we were talking about her celebration of life, and I was writing all the notes and everything. And all of a sudden she looked at me and she said, I have something way more important to talk with you about. And you can guess where this is going. And she said, I don't care about any of this stuff happening as much as I care about you not letting me die with chin hair. She said, and I will haunt you. She told me she was going to haunt me if I let her die with chin hair. And so luckily our CNAs were taking great care of her. And I had a private conversation with the CNA and said, every time you see her, I would like your support and making sure that there's no chin hairs. And so we were able to fulfill that wish. But I mean, she stopped our deep discussion about her celebration of life to say, way more important is this chin hair. And it really, as much as it has made me laugh so many times after that, but that's what dignity is, right? Dignity is, this is important to me. Please help make sure that that happens. And there's so much satisfaction when you get to be the person that gets to help with that, right? So
Beautiful. Yeah, and just allowing people to have as much control as possible. It's like we're losing so much control over so many things. And so, I really want that to be something that everyone knows, beautiful. Lisa, I can't thank you enough. This has been beautiful. I can't thank you enough. Where can people find you?
yeah, so you can email me at, I'm putting my email in the chat, and then I think our website was already in there, but thedeathdeck.com is where you can check out our products and blog and more info. But if you have any individual questions or want to connect, you can also shoot me an email. And yeah, and if you order anything from our website, that's me shipping it to you. So just know that this is a small female-owned business that you are supporting, and I'm very grateful for that. So, and thank you, Christine. This was lovely. I could have talked like 2 more hours, but we should I should probably make dinner for my family.
Oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I know for our East Coasters, it's a little late there, but I just wanted to mention I'm kind of reformatting, not reformatting, but I'm changing a little things for next month. So for those that have been joining me for the Death Over Tea, I'm going to be changing it a bit. So the Zoom link that you've been using will be a new Zoom link next month. And I think I'm also going to be changing the time. So I'm moving it back a little bit so it's not so painful for our East Coasters to stay up so late. So I'll probably be switching it to 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So that'll be 5 Pacific. And then it won't be so late for our East Coasters. I just can't thank you all enough for coming. It's just been a beautiful conversation. It's always such an honor to be able to share this space with all of you. And I hope that you'll take a moment to sit in gratitude for the life that we have. And not tomorrow is not promised, but with our DFS, we can get through anything. So I just want to say thank you all. And Lisa, thank you again for everything. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.